So we are discussing this mantra number 12, and it says that Brahman is all pervading. And all pervading, it has been shown in a little different way. What is in the front is Brahman, what is in the back is Brahman, what is in the right side is Brahman, what is in the left side it is Brahman, what is above is Brahman, what is below is Brahman, etc. etc. So this has been shown in this way. That indicates that what you are really confronting daily, that world, which comprises various names and forms, which also, which is inert, which is finite, which is ever changing, is Brahman. In fact, it has the opposite attributes. At one place I discussed this, what is inert and what is conscious. At one place I discussed these things, and in which I told you also that these 4 or 5 factors are there to determine what is inert. First thing is, which is subject to birth and death, which is subject to coming and going, which is made up of elements, which is constantly changing, and which has attributes. All this indicate it is inert. And Brahman, that consciousness, is just opposite to that, which does not have any attributes, which is not made up of elements, and which is not finite, which never comes and goes, which does not undergo any change. That is consciousness, that is Brahman. And here in this mantra says this world, which is inert and is Brahman. So, in fact, both have opposite attributes. So, in order to make this equation possible, we will have to do some negation. And we do negation of something which is negatable. That's how we have to see. What is negatable should be negated. Then the equation, definitely is possible. And what is negatable? This name and form is negatable. Name and form, all this is made up of elements. It is ever changing. It is subject to coming and going. And and it has attributes. So the name and form, which is inert, and which is mithya, of course, because they can't sustain without the Satyam, that is Brahman. The very existence of all the names and forms and the revelation of all the names and forms is due to Brahman, that is Satyam, and therefore all names and forms should be negated. And then when mithya is negated, definitely what remains is Satyam, and thereby we can say every name and form is ultimately Brahman. And therefore what is in the front is Brahman, what is in the back is Brahman. That is possible. And this equation, the world is Brahman, etc. Idam Vishwam Brahma Eva. So that is what is been told here. So Brahma Eva Idam Vishwam. This world is Brahman, is possible. This equation is possible. That is called Samanadhikaranyam. I told you, it's an equation. Samanadhikaranyam means indicate one thing alone. Even though there are 2 words, indicate one thing alone. And that is possible because Vishwam, comprising names and forms, are basically mithya, and that can't sustain without Brahman. So every name and form, after negating, of course, and is nothing but this Brahman. When mithya is negated, mithya resolves into Satyam. That is what the negation is actually. And therefore, like the snake, which is mithya, resolves into the rope, which is Satyam. So then what remains is just rope. So that thereby we can understand. That's called Badha Samanadhikaranyam, because Badha, we have to do the Badha, negation of names and forms, that is world. And then so equation works after negating name and form factor from the Jagat. What remains after negation is Satchidananda Atma or Brahman. Anyway, now this thing should be looked in 2 ways actually. The first thing is this Brahman, which is limitless, So, and therefore, there is nothing other than Brahman. And thereby all names and forms are negated, and therefore what is in the front and what is in the back and what is in the side and what is in the what is below and what is above, everything is Brahman, that we can definitely say. So we have to understand the limitlessness of Brahman in terms of space. Time factor is not much important here, because here all this indicating the directions, right? And front and back and everything. So in terms of space, we are trying to understand this thing. And well, consciousness is, that is Brahman, well, is available in all the three states. And thereby, well, it proves its definitely the limitlessness in terms of time. Now, if consciousness is the very nature of Atma, well, then which is invariably present in all the three states, then, well, of experience, then it is not bound by time and space. The very space is, because consciousness is, and therefore space has its existence in consciousness. Understand this very well. And while the consciousness is self-existence. Now I'm concentrating on you only on the space factor, because we are right now discussing that aspect only. Time factor is not much important here. So space has its existence in consciousness. Consciousness is self-existent. So, well, so from the standpoint of consciousness, Brahman or Atma, well, there is no special limitation because it is formless. And specially limitless means there is nothing away from consciousness. This is to be understood in this way only. What is specially limitless is, well, we have to understand in this way only, that there is nothing away from it. How we will understand that? That's only criteria now. So, well, if the space has its existence in consciousness, and consciousness is self-existent, then if this is so, then what is the distance between consciousness to anything in space? What is the distance between what is the distance from consciousness to anything in the space? What is the distance between you, the consciousness, and anything in space that you are conscious of? Like you are conscious of me right now. Just take it that way. And what is the distance between this physical body, that's an object of consciousness for you, and you are the consciousness, right? So you, the consciousness, and this body, what is the distance between them? Body is an object of consciousness. You are consciousness. What is the distance between them? Well, definitely, it's a distance between it's a distance between pot and clay, or wave and water. That kind of a distance it is, because the very body which is object of consciousness pervades the body. Otherwise, how will the body gets revealed? How will the body gets existence? And therefore, consciousness which pervades the body, and definitely there is no distance between body, object of consciousness, and the consciousness, that is you. So, well, and you may say, no, there is a distance of space between conscious, and distance in terms of space is there, Swamiji. Between body and consciousness, that is you, there is a distance in terms of space. But the very space definitely has its existence in consciousness. And therefore, a body which exists in space, well, and the space is in consciousness, body in the space is also in consciousness, then what is the distance between consciousness and the body? Well, there is no distance as such. And therefore, between space and consciousness there is no distance, because there is no space and consciousness. There is no space and consciousness. There is no wave and water. There is no pot and clay. Please understand this. We feel space also is there and consciousness also is there. And both will have a friendship, and so both exist together. Both are all pervading. Actually, very space is because consciousness is, and therefore space has existence in consciousness. Therefore, anything exists in space automatically has an existence only in consciousness. And so this is a thing to be understood. The wholeness, limitlessness, etc. is to be understood. It is not to be imagined. The very imaginer and the object of imagination called consciousness or wholeness, well, both definitely is Brahman alone, and therefore this is to be just understood. That's how we say it is a cognitive thing. So never try to imagine something. Let me imagine the wholeness or limitlessness, etc. So you are that consciousness in which the very space exists. And therefore space does not have an independent existence other than the consciousness. The very space is because the consciousness is, and therefore space has existence in consciousness. Therefore whatever exists in space, the entire world definitely exists along with the space in consciousness. Okay, and therefore, and Swamiji, but how will I understand little further? Okay, the moment you are conscious of the space, well, there is space consciousness. Moment you are conscious of the space, there is space consciousness, and therefore, same way time also you can say, moment you recognize the time, well, definitely there is time consciousness, and therefore there is no distance between time and consciousness, there is no distance between space and consciousness, and therefore entire space exists in consciousness, and the world which exists in the space, well, along with the space exists in the consciousness alone. And so if I ask you what is the distance between my two hands, well, you will say that, well, it is about 2 feet, etc. But suppose if I ask you what is the distance between my left hand and the space, well, there is no distance. Or what is the distance between my right hand and the space? Well, there is no distance as such. Distance is nil. And so there is no distance between any object and space, and therefore that is how we say space is all pervasive. Same way here also it is the same thing, and well, there is no distance between space and the consciousness, and because the space consciousness indicates space is pervaded by the consciousness, and therefore whatever exists in the space, well, definitely exist along with the space in the consciousness. As such, directly object itself is within the consciousness. You need not, but since you always feel that there is a distance, somewhere between I, the consciousness, and you, your body, well, there is a distance of space. That's how I am including that. Otherwise, very object, when you are aware of me, well, then you the consciousness pervades me, my body. And therefore, definitely, where is the distance? There is no distance at all. It's a distance of like a wave and water. Anyway, now I will give you another experiment for that. If this is so, between you and me, what is the distance? Now think of, between you and me, what is the distance? Swamiji, I am here in New Jersey and you are there in over. So this body, okay? Well, definitely there is when you consider yourself as a physical body and you consider me also as a physical body, well, there is a distance, and you and me refers to the physical body. Then between two bodies, well, they exist in space, and therefore it's like 2 points in space, 2 bodies in space. Well, their distance is going to be inevitable. It will be there, definitely. But if I tell you other way, suppose you and me. Now you know that you are consciousness. Means the word you transcends the body, mind and senses, etc. and refer to you as just consciousness. Means you are Brahmagnani. Suppose you are Brahmagnani and me means I am the physical body. Now you, the consciousness, because you know Brahman, that you are Brahman, etc. You are consciousness. So you and me means the physical body. Now what is the distance? You, the consciousness, and me, the physical body, what is the distance? The physical body is definitely object of consciousness, that is you, right? And therefore you, the consciousness, and this body which is an object of consciousness, what is the distance? Tell me, what is the distance? There is no distance. There is no, I hope you understand what I am saying. Okay? Because when you say I am aware of you, means what? I am aware of you, I know you, etc. means definitely you, the consciousness, awareness, etc. pervades my body. And therefore, what is the distance? Pervades means what? Well, definitely, if my whole body is in your consciousness or not. This much you can understand, I think. So, definitely, please understand, these are the things which is Vedanta. Other than that, everything is just saying words that are limitless and limitless and limitless. It is not going to work. It never works. That's how years and years go away. Please understand the concept. It may find little difficulty, but then please understand this. So we'll be seeing with the two different ways. Anyway, so you and me, in terms of physical body, well, there is a distance. If you say means I am a physical body and me means I also physical body, well, the physical body are like 2 points in a space, and therefore the distance is inevitable. But you are, suppose you know that I am consciousness and me means this physical body, let us say. So you the consciousness and me the physical body, what is the distance? Well, there is no distance at all. And therefore, anyway, between consciousness and the object consciousness, the distance is zero. Anyway, think of a star. It's the same thing. Well, basically, when you see, I see the star. Here, you see the body, but instead something else. Well, when you say I see the star, well, definitely the whole thing is in thought. I will tell you in other way also. The whole thing is in thought. So the distance, the distance in form of a thought. The star is in form of a thought, and everything else is in form of a thought. And therefore, then between the thought and the consciousness, what is the distance? There is no distance. There is no distance at all. So the distance between the star and the consciousness is the distance between thought and the consciousness, because the distance, etc., the star and the distance in between and the space and everything is in the form of thought. And therefore, between thought and consciousness, what is the distance? There is no distance, because you are the very witness from which all the thought arises. We have seen also. Anyway, and therefore, definitely, because some people may say, Swamiji, object in consciousness is not. So you are in my thought. And therefore, well, I am consciousness, that is all right. But then I am seeing you. Then you can't say that I am in, your body is in my consciousness. You are in my thought form. No problem. If I am in your thought form, well, but what is the distance between thought and the consciousness? There is no distance. And therefore, it is the distance between like a wave and water. Thought is also like a wave. And therefore, the distance between a thought wave and consciousness, well, there is no distance at all. So then where are you? Then where are you? Now you can understand. Now you can understand. Where are you? Anything if you say, I am here, immediately I am telling you, you are not taking yourself as consciousness. You take yourself as a body. Then only you will be able to locate yourself. A location is possible not in terms of consciousness, because the very space exists in consciousness, and the location is possible in space. And you say, I exist I am located in so and so place. Definitely, you take the physical body, which is within the space. You take it as yourself. And therefore, as you means the consciousness, where are you? So the question itself is a wrong question, because this question stems from the conclusion, well, that there are places where you are not. Like, I am here, and these are the places where I am not actually. There is no distance between you, the consciousness, and any object in the space. And between space and consciousness, there is no distance. Between an object which is in space and consciousness, there is no distance. And definitely now one more thing. Well, the very object also totally pervaded by consciousness means what? Consciousness lends the existence to the object, and consciousness, due to consciousness, the object is revealed, including space. Everything is revealed by the consciousness. Everything exists on account of consciousness, and therefore entire world, including the space, is mithya. And consciousness alone is the reality. And therefore, ultimately, whatever there is consciousness. What is in the front is Brahman. What is in the back is in Brahm, it is Brahman. What is in the right side is Brahman. What is in the left is Brahman, etc., etc. And so, this is a way we have to understand. I am not taking in terms of time because that is not important here, because here it has been shown in terms of directions, etc. So, spatially limitless. Limitlessness in terms of space is equal to, there is nothing away from me. There is nothing that is away from me. That is called spatial limitlessness. And what is there is non-separate from me. Any object of consciousness is within the consciousness alone, and that is mithya. Well, it is non-separate from me, and therefore entire world, including the space, definitely is consciousness alone. Is not within consciousness, is consciousness alone. Like wave exists in water, wave shines on account of water. So, or water pervades wave. Ultimately, wave is water, nothing else. There are no two things, wave and water. There is water. There is water. Same way, if consciousness pervades everything, and that is why it shines. Consciousness pervades any object, and therefore it has existence, and therefore definitely, so consciousness alone appears in all these forms. That is the world, which is mithya. So all names and forms, basically, we call object of consciousness. They are mithya, pervaded by consciousness, like water pervades every form, name and form called wave. So this is how we have to understand. So this is one way of understanding. And the second way of understanding is a little different. This is the way, it's a direct we can understand. And therefore, well, few things I would like to add in this also. So consciousness pervades every object, including space, etc. Space also is object of consciousness. There is a space consciousness. Space is recognized due to consciousness, etc. Everything we said also. Now, and therefore, whatever you see, whatever you hear, I'm talking about the world. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, or whenever you see, whenever you hear, wherever you see, wherever you hear, well, all that is this Brahman alone. And therefore, there is always Brahman plus name and form. Well, and that name and form being mithya, it cannot add anything. Like you add a number of waves to the water, no problem at all. So water plus wave, definitely it is water only. And same way here also, all the objects, well, definitely which exist on account of consciousness and gets revealed, illumined on account of consciousness, they are mithya. Whether they are there or they are not there, does not make any difference to Brahman. It does not make any, like the space. What exists in space does not make any difference to space. When they go away also, well, it does not, where will it go? It means it will, suppose, get totally destroyed in terms of remain as particles or concepts or etc. Still does not make any difference to the space. Same way, while Brahman plus any name and form does not make any difference. What is there is just Brahman alone, consciousness alone, nothing else is there. Anyway, so this is how it is to be understood. Or else now the second way of understanding is little different. So we say basically all the names and form, I told you that equation. The equation is this: Idam Vishwam Brahma. This world is Brahman. And to make the equation possible, we said that Vishwam is name and form. Well, definitely this name and form has to be negated. Then only, it can be equated with the Brahman, because name and form is within the times, etc., time, space, etc., and therefore it has to be negated. So equation works after negating name and form factor of the Jagat. Jagat has two components, because the very existence of name and form is ultimately Brahman. That's what we are going to see now. And name and form as such. And name and form does not make any difference to, because Name and form does not make any difference. What difference a pot will make, to the clay from which it is made? So, well, it doesn't make any difference. A pot is there or pot is not there. The clay will be there as it is. And there will not be a difference at all in terms of, weight or anything. And therefore, ultimately, name and form which is mithya, whether it is there or not, does not make any difference to the substance. Anyway, same way here also, what is satyam? Well, definitely, this name and form cannot make any difference to this Brahman. Well, that is okay. Now, so what remains after negation of name and form is again that Satchidananda Atma or Brahman. Now we will have to see in terms of this Satchidananda also. We can see that. We can see in form of Astibhati Priyam also. We can see in a form of this Satchidananda also. We have just seen in the form of this consciousness, etc. Chit. But you can see in different aspects. Now when you say that I love this flower, when you say like this, I love the flower, it implies three things. What? I love the flower means the flower definitely must be existing. So the first thing is the existence of flower. So the flower is. The very isness is Brahman. Now the question is, if isness is Brahman, but then flower goes away. So the existence of the flower, well, it also goes away. Flower goes away means existence of flower goes away. Then how will you say existence is Brahman? Yeah, that's correct. This is a very good question. So existence of flower goes away. Means the qualified existence with the name and form called flower goes away. Definitely. But existence as such continues with another name and form. With another name and form. That shows existence as such, unqualified. Unqualified by name and form. Well, will continue. Because the flower goes away means well, definitely some petals will be there. So then petal existence continue. Now Swamiji, but that qualified existence, well, definitely the by name and form called petal, well, also goes away. That's correct. Something else will be there. Something else will be there. Something else will be there. Will be there. Will be there. So existence as such, unqualified by a given name and form, will continue. That's what I want to convey. And therefore, that is called Sat. Well, that existence, well, as such, does not go. Flower existence goes away, petal existence goes away, some other existence goes away, molecule existence goes away, etc., etc. If at least in form of concept, it exists. Particle and then concept. So in form of a concept, well, it will continue. Anyway. So this is the first thing. I love flower means the existence of flower is definitely, it implies the existence of flower, that will be there. Now second thing which is implied is, if you love the flower, flower is known to you, definitely, right? And therefore, the second aspect is flower is known. So flower shines well in my consciousness. I told you already this. So, and that consciousness is Brahman. So that is called Chit. The first one is that existence is Sat. So well, that remains. That consciousness will remains. So well, it is a condition by a given name and form. Well, definitely, that goes away. So flower consciousness goes away. But petal consciousness goes away. Well, then molecule consciousness goes away. Some other consciousness. Particle consciousness will be there. Particle consciousness goes away. Some concept consciousness will be there. So consciousness unqualified will be all the time there. Consciousness qualified by a particular name and form, well, will go away. That goes away, definitely. Flower consciousness, this consciousness, that consciousness, that is what the waking state is. All the time this, right? So basically, consciousness qualified will definitely go away. Unqualified will always remain. It does not go. And therefore that consciousness which is unqualified is Chit, Brahman. We are seeing with one object, right? So a flower. We are not talking of the whole world. We are taking one representative of the world, taking this one representative of this world called flower. And the third thing is, because we made a statement, I love flower. So flower existence is implied. Flower consciousness is implied, definitely. And the third thing is now love. Love implies Ananda. Because that flower must be giving you the... Flower pleases you. Makes you, happy. That's how you love it. So, definitely the Ananda also is manifest in the sight of the flower. So it is Ananda or love qualified by a given name and form, definitely called flower. So flower love, as such, that flower love will go away, definitely. Again, condition. Some other love will be there. Some other love will be there. But the Ananda or love, either it's the same thing. We have seen in Panchadashi, I am not discussing much because ultimately we have seen in the second chapter that Ananda and love goes together. That's a Vyapti, in fact. Whatever is an object of love must be the source of Ananda. That's how we have seen. That is how we have seen in the second chapter of Panchadashi, and we discussed very elaborately, so I am not going back to that. Anyway, so Ananda or love, we can take it that way. Itself, unqualified by any name and form, will never go. That will continue. So unqualified existence continue. Looking at the flower we are seeing. And unqualified consciousness continues. Unqualified love also continues, which is called Ananda. So Satchidananda just will be there. As a basis. Unqualified means you remove that name and form. Yeah. If you want to keep name and form and plus Brahman or Satchidananda Atma, then definitely if you want to keep it and you want to qualify it, then it is different thing. Then it won't. It will not remain. But as such, if you remove the name and form, what remains is that unqualified consciousness, which is, or the Brahman, which is Satchidananda, will be there as a basis for every object. We remove means because it is negatable, that for anyway. So Satchidananda, or else you call Satyam Jnanam, Anantam, etc. The same thing, Brahman alone. So existence of flower is Satyam, which is Brahman, and then the consciousness of the flower is Jnanam, which is also Brahman, and the Ananda or the love of the flower is Anantam, which is Brahman. So basically, unqualified, this love or Ananda or Anantam is basically is Brahman. Now the problem is, there are objects in the world which are not objects of love. They are objects of hatred. What about that? You are saying every object has a basis Satchidananda, there is love and therefore Ananda. But this particular object I don't like. Now how will you show the basis, the Satyam of this thing as a Satchidananda? So that is the issue. Anyway, suppose someone sees a cobra or something and says, I hate this cobra. Naturally. Now here how will you show? Cobra name and form. Remove it. Where is Satchidananda? Show me. I am hating it. Where will you show there is no love and therefore there is no Ananda? How will you show here Satchidananda? And if you can't prove Ananda here, it's over. Satchit also cannot be proven then. Because what is Sat is Chit, that is Ananda. Right? What is Sat? What is existence? Is the consciousness which is limitless. And therefore, so if you can't prove love or Ananda there in a cobra, then how will you prove the Brahman as a basis of that also? So definitely when you say I hate this cobra, etc., then also one may question where Ananda remains. But actually what happens in this situation is there is a denial of happiness in the mind. We have already discussed, and therefore on the basis of that only I am discussing. So one basically hates that cobra because it creates a disturbance in your mind. And what one really hates is not cobra. What one really hates is the disturbance in one's mind. And Swamiji, but what does it mean? Because you want a mind, you want a particular type of a mind where you manifest as an Ananda. I have already talked to you also. I have already talked to you that you always, when there is a Shanta Vritti or a Satvika Vritti in the mind, there the Ananda manifests. You manifest, the fullness manifest. You love fullness, sir. You love wholeness. You love yourself without any limitation. You never wanted to be a wanting being. You want to seize the very wanting being. And that manifests when the mind is free from disturbance. And therefore, seeing the cobra, the mind gets disturbed. You don't hate cobra. You hate the mind which is disturbed. Because in that disturbed mind, you as a wholeness, fullness, happiness does not manifest. And therefore, basically what one really hates is not the cobra, but the disturbance in the mind. And disturbance is definitely hated because one loves an undisturbed mind. And because that undisturbed mind in which this fullness manifests. I have already told you that Shanta Vritti, etc. And therefore, I love is there even in the statement, I hate the cobra. So, love is only for Ananda. Love is only for fullness. The manifest fullness, well, that is called, or what manifest happiness, in which you basically enjoy the same fullness which is you. And therefore, basically, whether one hates an object or whether one loves an object, love for Ananda is manifest both in love and hatred. So you definitely don't hate. And there are people, don't think that this snake or cobra is a object of hatred for the entire world. No, not at all. There are people in whose mind a cobra cannot create a disturbance. He will not hate. I have seen people who love, they say, in Ahmedabad itself I have seen, especially in monsoon, they say whenever any kind of a snake appear in your home or in your farmhouse or anywhere, please call us, and they come enthusiastically and they like to catch that also. Imagine, there is no hatred, no fear, no disturbance in the mind. What you hate is your disturbed mind, because in which you are not able to manifest as fullness. So that is why a Shanta Vritti is very, very important, in which you basically manifest. And that Shanta Vritti is only achieved by Karma Yoga. So Shanta Vritti is nothing but a Sattvika Vritti. And Raga Dvesha definitely is going to create a disturbance. That is how so much of talk about this Adhikaritvam. Karma Yoga does one job. It will create a conducive environment of a mind, in a mind where you definitely manifest as fullness, and you will be able to appreciate yourself as limitlessness also. And therefore, well, they say for Atma Jnanam, you require such a mind is very, very important. You can understand now. Raga and Dvesha both basically born of this Rajoguna. Kameshaha, Krodeshaha, Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha, Mahashano, Mahapapma, Vidyenami Havairin. Either you say Sattvic Vritti or Shanta Vritti, that is free from Ragadvesha, free from disturbance. Dvesha also means a hatred. You can say even for Raga also, a wanting being, etc. is there. We have seen that. A wanting being and wanted object, that division is there in your mind. Well, definitely being a wanting person, you can never appreciate yourself as a full person. With your fullness, you are not able to appreciate. And therefore, basically, when that wanting, wanted, subject-object division also goes away, well, then definitely in the same mind, now which has become Shantam, free from disturbance, the same fullness manifests. We call it, when it manifests, when fullness manifests, you call it as a happiness. That's what it is. And therefore, even a Karma Yogi also is relatively happy person, independently happy person. Relatively. Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma vindati atmani yat sukham, Bhagavan said. Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma. This Karma Yogi who has Vairagyam, etc., and he is free from the longing of this external objects. Atmani yat sukham vindati. He also gains Atma Sukha, definitely. And therefore, relatively he is also happy. One who is relatively happy can discover that he is absolute happiness. Okay? And therefore, it is very simple to understand. Yeah, one who is relatively happy, one who is all the time unhappy, whatever you say, Ananda Atma is not going to work. You have to create an environment in the mind where the knowledge of self is going to occur. You have to create a conducive environment. Well, conducive to the nature of Atma. You have to create. Atma is free from likes and dislikes. Well, you have to create a situation in mind. Well, mind is free from likes and dislikes. And so now that is possible through Karma Yoga. So anyway, this is just by the way. So anyway, Satchidananda is always manifest. Whether one hates an object or whether one loves an object, whatever is there, ultimately the love for Ananda is manifest both in love and hatred, both. And therefore Satchidananda is always manifest, no matter what one sees or when one sees, where one sees, what one hears, where one hears, when one hears, what one thinks, when one thinks, where one thinks, whatever is there. I mean, in waking state and dream state. Well, Satchidananda Atma plus mind with a few objects, dream objects or waking objects is there. Well, still it is Satchidananda Atma. And in deep sleep state, objects gone, mind resolved, still Satchidananda Atma. Objects are there, Satchidananda Atma. Objects are not there, Satchidananda Atma. No difference. Because objects, mind, everything is mithya. Gold plus ornament. What does it make a difference? 100 gram gold plus ornaments. What difference it makes? Still 100 gram gold. So wave plus water. It's still wave, water only. That's how it is. So what is there in front? Oh, Swamiji, names and forms. Satchidananda Atma. What is in the back? Satchidananda Atma. Brahma eva idam purastad, Brahma paschat, Brahma dakshinachasya uttarena, adasya urdhvam Brahma. Everything is idam vishwam varishtham Brahma. What is there is just Brahman. So, well, consciousness or the Satchidananda Atma plus unmanifest mind. Satchidananda Atma. Satchidananda Atma plus manifest mind with few objects. Waking state, dream state, still Satchidananda Atma. So whether they are there or they are not there. So that, well, something, well, we will keep on wearing that. So something to objectify in the waking and dream states, well, they are there, still Satchidananda Atma. That something keep on wearing. Waking objects keep on wearing. Dream objects wearing. They are gone totally now. Well, definitely that something keeps on wearing, being the mithya object, including the body. Well, and therefore both the states Jagrat and Swapna. It is Satchidanatma. And definitely in sleep the mind is not manifest. Well, then one is Satchidanatma plus unmanifest mind. Still one is always Satchidanatma. So Brahman alone is appearing in this manner in various names and forms. Either maybe of a waking world, dream world, or names and forms become unmanifest. Whatever. So all that is here is therefore Brahman alone. So this is how, this is the other way we can understand. First thing is just take a consciousness and try to understand it. How consciousness, which is limitless, pervades the space and the objects in the space, and thereby, well, definitely everything exists on account of consciousness. Everything is revealed. Whole world is revealed, including space. Everything is illumined. Who illumines the space? Space cannot illumine itself. It's a Mahabhuta, it is Jadam. No object in the world can illumine itself. They are not self-illumining. Then who illumines it? Well, consciousness illumines, means consciousness pervades. So when you recognize space, well, definitely there is a space consciousness. Space is pervaded by the consciousness. So you can understand that way. So consciousness plus space, well, it is consciousness alone. And therefore, this is because the whole wave is illumined by water. Wave is existent on account of water. On account of water. Water pervades the wave. So what is there is just water. And same way here also every name and form is just nothing but the consciousness of Brahman. Therefore, well, negate name and form. Negate. Negate means in terms of cognition. Negate it. It is mithya. When it is mithya means still it is there. It will be there. That is what mithya is. That is what mithya is. So it is in terms of basically, this Satya Mithya is ontological. It's totally ontological. There is no object called Satyam. There is no object called Mithya. Satya and Mithya is an understanding of the reality of objects. What is real, what is unreal. That is Satya and Mithya. Words are coined not for objects, but for the reality of the objects. What is the status of the reality? For that they are the words. So this is, when understanding Mithya, the Mithya experience continues. That is what it is. Everything continues. But now it is Mithya. Now it is Mithya. It is not non-existent. So anyway, so Brahman, then says Brahman that is to be known is Varishtham, most exalted. So the knower of Brahman, well, that Brahman is Brahman. Brahma Veda, Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of Brahman is Brahman. Knower of Brahman does not say, I am knower of Brahman. Never. He would not do that mistake. He would not do the mistake. The very knower is resolved, sir. The very knower who has gone to the Shastra, not for remaining as a knower. The knower has negated himself and he says, well, I am the witness of the very Ahankara, also the knower. And therefore, the knower of Brahman says, I am Brahman. He never says, for onlooker it is a knower. That's okay. That's okay. This is the only knowledge where the very knower is negated. This is the only knowledge. Where in all other knowledges, the very knower is retained. Otherwise, it is not possible to know anything. If knower is not there, how come he knows? How come an object of knowledge will remain and knower is not there? How it is possible? But here the very knower who has surrendered to the teaching and to the teacher, of course, and to the Shastra. Well, in the surrender itself, that knower is gone, knocked out. Okay? And he understands that I am a very witness of the knower. Witness of this knower, Ahankara, etc. Because of me, the knower shines. Because I am the knowledge, therefore knower shines. I am the knowledge, therefore object of knowledge shines. I am knowledge, therefore even the knowledge in the buddhi takes place in form of vrittis. Very cognition is possible because I am the knowledge. So pramada, pramana, prameya, all the triputi is because of me only. So then, the knower and object of knowledge and the very knowing process, all three are possible because I am knowledge. So all three are negated. Anyway, but here knower is negated as such. And therefore, in the wake of this knowledge, the notion that I am separate from everything is swallowed completely. And so perception of real differences, well, and divisions, etc. in the world, which alone causes the smallness, etc. and bondage, disappears once and for all. Because he says, well, what is in the front is me. He doesn't say Brahman. He doesn't say. This we are saying. Shruti says, Brahma eva idam purastad, Brahma paschad, etc. etc. Later, the Shastra is going to tell, Aham eva idam purastad, aham paschat, etc. What is in the front is me. What is in the back is in the me. And therefore, by this, the divisions had gone away. The very insignificance, a sense of insignificance centered on the self has gone. Because the division creates a sense of insignificance, a wanting being, a small being. When you say you are small, definitely there is a division that you and someone and the world are different. And therefore, so the perception of this real difference and division, etc., which alone causes smallness and bondage, well, disappears once for all. And so, this is called Brahmajnana. Anyway, so in every chapter, basically one finds that the Vastu is understood in this way. Anyway, so Vastu, that Brahman, well, basically is non-separate from me. The seeker understands that. Seeker wants to understand Brahman. That is the sought. You understand that sought is non-separate from me. The distance between seeker and sought is in form of ignorance, which has gone now. This is called Brahmajnana. Anyway, so this ends the second section of the second chapter. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.